Hi, my name is Sarah Salato, and I am the president and founder of a nonprofit company called Alex Incorporated. I started it about a year ago, and Alex is an acronym for acceptance, love, equality, and Zenacious. Zenacious is a big word, and I had to kind of try to remember what it meant, but it very well went with the letter X. And it means education and to desire to learn and a desire for change. So Alex is a nonprofit company that has goals to provide presentations to educate ourselves, our community, allies, people that don't know anything about the LGBTQ community and want to learn. And Alex also provides, we did the Guildford Pride event last year. We're doing it again this year. We just did a queer prom in December for our youth. So we're getting into lots of new things as well. So I'm very excited just to tell you about an event that we're having coming up in a couple of weeks, March 14th. It's actually 2 weeks from tomorrow, right here in Guildford at the Guildford Library. It's going to be from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we are very, very fortunate to have two wonderful people that I've had the opportunity to meet over the past couple of years and have helped me incredibly in the journey that I find myself in now. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce us to Claire McCarthy and Tony Ferriolo.
Hi.
So you two agreed to do this presentation that we're going to do, which I kind of said to you guys, hey, would you do this?
Jumped at the chance.
Yes, I think yes.
Accurate description.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you went, yes, we're very excited about doing this, and then kind of immediately got together and figured out how you wanted this to look, this presentation. So why don't you just take turn as to talk about yourselves, what you do, why you want to do this, et cetera.
Yeah, sure. So I've been training and speaking in front of people for 17 years on trans, non-binary, LGBTQ, kind of like a cultural competency thing. From the beginning, after I transitioned in 2005, there wasn't anyone that I knew that was trans. And it was a very hard journey to become Tony. So I promised myself that I would try to make it easier for other people, and that's when I started working with trans youth and their families. So I've been doing that since 2008 as a certified life coach. It's very important for these kids to know that it's okay to be who they are and to just live the lives they truly deserve. Recently, I signed up with Healthcare Advocates International as their director of their youth and family program, and we go around to schools and we train educators on, kindness. I mean, I think that's the best way to say it. Because I have to believe that most people want to do the right thing. Most people want to say the right thing, but they just aren't educated enough around the LGBTQ community to do that, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So when this opportunity was put in front of me, and I must say that I'm freaking excited to work with Claire. I met Claire through an interview with her, but I typically do not co-present. And I cannot wait to be standing in front of an audience with Claire, because I think that what we have in common, and agree or not agree, is that it's more like edutainment. Okay, you're gonna have fun. You're gonna laugh with us. You're gonna learn with us. You might cry with us, but it's certainly a space where we welcome everyone in. Okay, if you're thinking about what's this guy talking about, LGBTQ plus, what's this trans stuff? I don't understand it. Please come to the event. We want people to open their hearts and open their minds. And at the end, if you still don't understand, because you'll probably never understand somebody that you're not, but if you don't understand, or maybe you still have this really funky, bad feeling about the LGBT community, that's cool. No judgment. But we don't have to hurt or hate each other over that. And I think that's the message, right? Is to just be open to the conversation and come in and just sit with us, and then Q&A is going to be a blast.
Yeah. Tony and I play well together. So come watch. We'll share the toys. It works out nicely. So I retired as a Latin teacher about 2 years ago, took early retirement to start a transgender advocacy business. And I called it TransCat, TransQAT, because that's what my cats told me I was supposed to name it. And what I wanted to do was take those skills as an educator and apply them to this situation that Tony was just describing, that and I think we're very much in agreement on that, that most people are well-intentioned. They don't want to be stepping on you by saying the wrong thing or hurting you, but it's such a new idea to so many people that they need a little bit of education. And so I bring that to what I do. I do public speakings and trainings. I'm also the producer and host of Transcat, the podcast, which is a series of conversations. It's a place for respectful conversations about trans issues, because if I learned anything after 33 years in the classroom, it's that if everybody's shouting, nobody's learning.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing that when I train or I speak in front of people is that I know that from the beginning, I remember the first time I spoke, I forgot to ask how many people. I just said yes. And then I said, well, how many people? They said about 400 to 500. And I was like, what?
For your first time out?
Yeah, for my first time out. And I just had to tell my story. And I remember the person I was dating said, listen, there's not an answer. You'll know the answer to every question because it's about your life. She says, but remember one thing, Tone. Most of the people in the audience back then, when you used to say, how many of you know somebody who's trans, nobody would raise their hand.
Yeah.
And then I would say, well, now you do. And they'd be like, what? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I was representing my community. And I still think about that every time I get up in front of an audience because of the way this world and this country is sitting right now, unfortunately, the hate is getting louder.
Mm-hmm.
And people are voicing their hate now to me, to my face. I mean, typically they would sit in the audience. You can tell who they were. They'd sit there with their arms crossed, and I'd be like, oh boy. But recently there was a woman at a training that, I don't come out as trans until like maybe halfway through the training most of the time. I want to challenge people to say, now what do you think of me, right? And she made this, like, she went, oh, like that. And I was like, oh boy. Yeah. And I said to her, Chris, what's going on? She was like, nothing. I said, I don't think you want to be here anymore. She goes, I don't. And I said, I don't think you like me anymore. And she says, I don't like you.
Simply because you're transgender.
Yeah, simply because I was trans. So the rest of the room was like gasping. And I said, let me ask you a question, because I think this is a great opportunity, because I've always wanted to ask this question and never had the opportunity to. I said, prior to you knowing I was trans, you were probably saying, who's that cute tattooed Italian guy, right? She didn't laugh. Everybody else did. She was just like, what?
Nothing.
I said, but once you found out I was trans, now you don't like me? What? Why? She couldn't answer me. But what I didn't do to Chris was I didn't ignore her through the rest of the training, and there was about 20-25 minutes left. I kept coming back to her saying, Chris, give me your views on that. Like, what do you think about that? Well, these kids, they need hope. I said, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're giving children hope, because when you give a child hope for a better life, they won't want to take their life. Chris, you are not sitting in hospitals like I am, in psych units with kids that have no space left on their arms for another slash. Right? So anyway, thing ended. I'm leaving, and they were having this lunch, and I couldn't stay because I had to go to another training. And all of a sudden, she screams at me when I'm leaving, Tone, you want a chicken cutlet to go?
You're like,
and
best
I
friend.
was like, excuse me? She goes, you want a chicken cutlet to go? We can wrap something up for you.
Yeah.
Now, the point I want to make is that if I ignored her, if I was unkind to her, she would have never seen me for who I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to say that, well, first of all, one of the big reasons, as you both know, that I started Alex was because I was very uneducated about the LGBTQ community when my child came out as part of the LGBTQ community. And I didn't understand anything. I didn't know where to turn, who to turn to, I just didn't know what to do. And so I educated myself. I still have so much to learn. And what I really, truly feel passionate about is that we just need to be able to sit down and talk together. And that's anyone who's got different opinions and thoughts about anything, really. Yeah. But we don't. As you say, we yell, we talk, we yell over each other. Nobody listens. Nobody wants to listen. I may not necessarily change your opinion, but at least you're listening to what I have to say.
Right.
And once those defensive walls are up, it's hard to scale them. Right. So if Tony had been more offended by Chris, then her walls would have been much more solid and unbreachable. But that I'm going to react with love. I'm
Absolutely.
going to react with compassion.
My superpower.
Yeah.
My superpower is being kind to people who aren't kind to me. That is super important.
And you've been very nice to me that way.
Yeah.
I meant to thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and there just was no vocabulary for this sort of thing. I knew before I hit double digits that something was going on inside me.
Yeah.
But there was no language, and I say sort of half jokingly that it wouldn't have mattered if there were, because there was nobody to talk to. There was no one in my life that I could go to and say, hey, here's what's going on inside, and I don't get it. I feel really isolated and scared, and I don't even have the words to tell you. It wouldn't have mattered. My parents would not have been open to something like that. My friends, teachers, religious leaders, nobody would have said, oh, well, yeah, come on, let's get you a safe place to talk about this.
Yeah.
And so I internalized that. I relied on the fact that I was othered and would always be that way. And I didn't come out until I was 55. So I started transitioning after a century of being closeted. And the damage that does is indescribable. And it's exactly what this man fights against, is the damage that this does to kids. Yeah. And the chance to work with Tony is an honor, because Tony saves lives.
Yeah.
I'm an educator. I try to, make ideas accessible to all sorts of people. You save lives.
Yes. I have to say I do save lives. And at the beginning, that was really hard for me. Yeah. It was hard for me when parents used to say, thank you for saving my kid's life. I remember being so overwhelmed with that, and then I had to say, yeah, this is something that it's a gift and it's an honor for me. I mean, once you see that shift, once you see because I don't know, again, if you know who Brene Brown is. A lot of people know who Brene Brown is. She was very shocked in her studies that the opposite of belonging is fitting in. So fitting in is when you assess a group and you say, okay, what do I need to say? What do I need to wear? What do I need to do? But true belonging doesn't want you to change yourself, right? It wants you to just be who you are. So if we're fitting in, that means we're betraying ourselves. And if we're betraying ourselves, that's not sustainable.
Right.
So what do we teach our children? We teach our children, don't change yourself for anybody. Just be yourself. But yet.
Unless you're like this, then don't be yourself.
Unless you're a trans or a non-binary kid and you're going into spaces like schools, they want you can't be that way. You have to be this way to fit in, right? So that's a strong message, and we'll be talking more about that in our talk.
Yeah.
About
I'm afraid that we're going to end up talking way too much about talk about the entire talk.
Yeah. Hey,
we'll just come up with something new.
There's so much to talk about.
There really is so much to talk about from a parent perspective. I have to say the one thing about the two of you that I have truly appreciated, and there's many things that I truly appreciate about the two of you, but the one thing is that you allowed me to ask the questions. You allowed me to voice the difficulties that I was having as a parent. You didn't judge me. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes someone might get angry or upset if you don't understand right off the bat, or you don't accept right off the bat. But you guys really completely educated me and gave me time and understanding. And I really, really appreciate that, because if you had been different, I would have been on the defense,
of course.
right? It wouldn't. I would have put the defense up, and I would have been angry and upset and trying to find somewhere else that what would listen to what I was saying. Just to give a little plug here for Transcat,
we did, and on our episode,
yes.
You were really honest and raw about some of the challenges, because I've talked to other parents. Tony, you deal with parents all the time.
All the time.
And when it's your kid, you want to do what's right. And that pressure is immense. And in our desire to want to have parents support their kids, sometimes we do kind of gloss over that there's a degree of difficulty there, of things you have to let go of
Absolutely.
expectations. And we talked a lot
Yes,
about that.
right. The expectations that we have as
Yeah.
parents of what our child will be when they grow up, or where they, and then you feel guilty. And I spoke with you the night before, and I said, I don't want to look like a terrible person, but what I was going to say that day, I knew was going to be different from the other two that were with us, simply because my journey was different.
Yeah, everybody's journey is different.
Everybody's journey is different, and every parent's journey is different as well. And because my child at that time of the interview was in a difficult place as well, I wasn't seeing happiness in him.
Yeah.
So that was very hard for me to be like, but I don't feel like we're in a better place right now. We are now.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was difficult. So I was very appreciative of you being like, you made me feel so much better that I could really just say how I felt, and that you wouldn't judge me, and that maybe it was going to help people that kind of felt the same way that I did.
Yeah, tell your own story. Don't worry about anything else. I remember our first Zoom call.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I remember that, but I got to be honest with you. Like, for you, it was new.
Yeah,
For me, it wasn't.
yeah.
For me, I've had thousands of families sitting in front of me and thousands of moms sitting in front of me feeling the same way. So I just want you to know this now, because I didn't say it then, but I knew where you were going to end up.
Yeah,
But I was holding it in my heart for you,
yeah,
and I was just waiting. I said, she's going to do wonders. It was something about your energy that I knew that not only were you going to be accepting your child, but you're going to make a difference in this world for the LGBTQ community, and I was right.
yeah.
So, a lot of times, parents, when they're in that space of, oh no, they feel so alone. I mean, now I'm working a lot with families from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
We all know what's happening there. I just started in the last 2 weeks working with two families that that they had the privilege of moving here. One's living in Fairfield and one's living in Westport. So they have the means to come here. But I also am working with 3 families that can't. And it's horrifying. They're, one of their kids is self-harming to an alarming rate, So now I'm Zooming, coaching, working with the families. We got them a couple of appointments here in Connecticut at some clinics and a top surgeon. And, we're going to make it happen. But as soon as that child knew that transitioning was a possibility for them, they shifted.
Mm-hmm.
They shifted.
That's exactly what happened to my child in the hospital.
Yeah.
As soon as he spoke with you and he knew that, oh, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, okay. And these were things I couldn't say to him because I didn't know. I didn't understand. But you were so like, oh, yeah, this is what we'll do. When you get home, we'll do this and this. And he was like, oh, now I can see a future for myself.
Yeah.
Whereas even 5 minutes ago, I couldn't.
Yeah.
When I came out at 55, I didn't see a future for me. And I remember using the same metaphor with my therapist at the time, is when she finally got me to a point where it was like, well, why don't you just think about what it would be like if you did come out, instead of constantly saying, I can't do this. This isn't possible. Just let's pretend. And I spent a week reflecting on it, and I came back to her and said, it's like I can see a quarter of a mile down the road.
Yeah.
And that's not far.
Yeah.
I mean, most people can see further than that down the road, but I can see a quarter of a mile, and it's been decades since I could say that.
Wow.
And that distance, that foresight, that visibility just increases every time we do something like this.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay, this is possible.
Yeah.
So,
Doing the work empowers us, and it's doing the work with kids I never thought would heal me, because I didn't have anybody to compare myself to either. So when they started talking about their lives, I was like, wait a minute, I am trans. Like, it was affirming for me to say, oh, I used to do the same thing. Oh my God, I used to feel the same way when I was their age. So it's just amazing that, the energy I give out, I definitely get back when you see that shift. Mm-hmm. I can never get tired of that. When I first start working them, they're texting me 4 times a day, and I'm answering back, and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden 4 goes to 2, goes to 3, goes to, hey, I just want to let you know, I think I'm starting to love myself. Those words that I hear sometimes from kids, makes me tear up every time, because they deserve that. Everybody deserves to feel like they're worthy of living, and that they can, in their own skin and in their own bodies, and changing the language about their bodies is a whole other thing. We'll talk about that a little bit on the 14th, right?
The 14th.
The 14th.
Yes.
6:30.
Yes. I hope you both remember.
I'll be there.
I've got a thing.
You have a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
She'll be a little late.
What you're hearing amongst all three of us right now is what you can expect on the 14th in terms of
Yeah.
vulnerability. And I think that's important, that we are willing to make ourselves vulnerable in terms of opening up to questions, prodding around at old hurts, if that is in the service of educating, if that is in the service of helping you have a better understanding. And really all that requires is that you come with an open heart. Drop all of those preconceptions at the door, and let's have a respectful conversation.
Yeah.
Be fun.
And possibly fun.
It's always fun. It's always
It's definitely going to be fun.
Will there be
too.
cookies?
I
I
don't
will
know.
make sure
Will
that
there
there
be
are cookies. What kind of cookies would you like?
Chocolate chip.
Chocolate chip. You got it.
I'm
Old
a
school.
classicist.
Old
That's my
school.
job.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, March 9th is 19 years since I had top surgery.
Wow.
Yeah, 19 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, and
Does Hallmark make cards for that?
no, I don't think so. Not yet. But there are some card companies that do make some really cool LGBTQ cards. But I was thinking, like, when I'm sitting there, like in my art group that we have, and the kids are as young as 5, and I'm like, they weren't even thought of when I transitioned. Like, most of even in the teen group, the teen group only goes up to 18. They were like, when did you get your top surgery? 2005. I wasn't even born yet. I was like, well, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. I paid the path for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the path was paved from me, from people that,
Yeah.
don't get the credit. I talk about that a lot in my school trainings when, Black trans women are the people in our community that are targeted the most for hate and murder. And they're the ones who were advocating in New Haven for the doctors to see them and give them estrogen, but they don't get the credit, and they're pioneers.
Yeah.
So I always encourage people that if you ever have the opportunity to listen to a Black trans woman speak, that you stop and you listen.
Yeah.
Because you will learn a lot, for sure.
Yeah. I was just going to say something about, as far as the education, I always say I grew up in a straight world, and so I didn't know anything about anything. But I don't know that I would have, I certainly wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't brought to my doorstep, right? If my child hadn't come out. But I also wonder if I would have learned like I'm learning now. Not that I wouldn't have wanted to, but I don't know that I would have sought out the opportunities.
There wasn't the urgency.
Yeah. And so, but that's why I think it's so important to bring the opportunities to people, right? So that's why I think it's so important in Guilford, where yes, we're a wonderful community, but there's still a lot of difficulties, and we still have some ways to go. And so I know from most of the people have been wonderful to us, but we've also lost some friends along the way. And I feel like if I could get, those are the people that I want to get in with the two of you. The ones that truly don't understand, that truly almost get sort of, angry about it, and just sort of say, listen, hold all that. Come sit down for an hour and a half. We'll provide you a cookie and something, and just listen. Just listen and open your mind.
Yes.
That's just so important.
Neither Tony nor I are preachers.
Yeah,
That's not how we approach things like
Yeah.
this. We're going to share information with you. We're going to share lived experience.
But let's talk about this for a second, about understanding. They're never going to understand.
No.
I mean, you'll never understand what it's like to be trans, and I'll never understand what it's like to be cisgender.
Right.
I'll never understand what it's like to be born in a body that matches my gender identity.
Right.
But I still believe that cisgender people exist.
Yeah.
Even though trans people are much cooler, right? Sorry. It's the truth. Gotta say it. We'll always be honest.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, so bringing people in that say, I'll never understand it. And those are the people we want to talk to, because they'll sit there and they'll say, well, it can't exist because I can't imagine being born and saying, wait a minute, I'm something else other than what I am, what they tell me I am. You're never going to. So congratulations, you're retired from trying to figure out what it's like to be somebody else. It's never going to happen.
No, but I remember when I was walking with a friend years ago, and she was telling me that one of her friend's child just came out as transgender. And I literally said to her, I couldn't imagine what that would be like. And my heart broke for that parent, right? Sure. I was like, I couldn't imagine. And then a year later, I was in this position, and God was like, "Let me show you.
Let me show you. Let me show you. So you can't
Let me
imagine.
show you what it's like."
Well, wouldn't it be great, though, if we could move toward a world where there wasn't that, oh, you poor thing, you know, that when your child comes out, it's
Right.
like the kid coming to you and saying, I want to play football instead of baseball,
Right.
or I want to take French instead of Latin.
Right.
Why would anybody take French instead of Latin? That's not what I'm asking. But let's just imagine.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if there was no stigma attached?
Yeah.
And you could just love and support your kid.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate. I was at a college upstate New York quite a few years ago showing a self-made man documentary, and we had Q&A afterwards, and there was a woman sitting in the front row with her trans daughter, and she raised her hand, and I said, yeah, sure. She goes, we're having a funeral. And I said, excuse me, yeah, we're gonna have a funeral for who she used to be. And I was like, well, let's rethink this for a second. You know, I said, why don't we have a celebration
Right.
of life? Because nobody's died here.
Right.
Nobody's died, okay? You're the only side effect that I have seen in the 17 years of working with trans youth is happiness. That's the biggest side effect, is listening to them laugh again, seeing them smile again, out of no hospitalizations, no self-harm, no suicidal ideations. Those are the side effects when you allow somebody to be who they are.
Right. And I was just thinking about how my child used to, like, between me and him, we were contacting you all the time initially,
Loved
right?
it. Yeah.
And then now it's like crickets, which
Yeah.
is where we want to be,
Yeah,
right?
this is where I want people. Well,
Right.
because what that does is it leaves space for the new people coming
Yes,
in.
yeah.
It's always been a cycle. Once somebody leaves very quickly, you know, another one comes in. And I'm recently working with a 10-year-old whose form of self-harm is biting themselves till they bleed. So how do you take somebody's teeth away? You just don't.
Right.
So now we're really working with them, getting them involved in the art group, getting them involved with me, you know, coaching and talking and setting them up. And in 3 weeks, the parents see such a big difference because now that child has hope,
Yeah.
right? Hope is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It certainly is.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we could sit here and talk forever, but
Chit-chat.
yeah. But basically, we would love to see you guys on March 14th at the Guilford Library, 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. We'll provide some goodies for you. But mostly you're just going to get some education. You're going to get opportunities to ask questions. You're going to get to learn a lot about these two wonderful humans to the left of me. And we really hope that you'll consider coming. If you have any questions about it beforehand, please reach out to me. We'll be putting our email and our websites down below so you can see those. But we hope to see you March 14th, 6:30 at the Guilford Library. Anything else, you two, before we sign off?
No, looking forward. Can we get chocolate chunk cookies?
Yes.
Because I like the chunk instead of the chips. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just saying.
No, that's what
Okay.
I'm
Well,
willing
both.
to accommodate you.
All right, we're going to have chocolate chunk cookies.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Be there.
Bye-bye.
Bye.